Hi, my name is Itali and welcome to a time lapse of my drawing of My Little Pony. This recording is at 5 times normal speed. In this video, we skip the sketch stage as I'd already drawn the pony and we go straight to the line art stage. Now this is an older piece of art of mine drawn in 2019 with all the recording besides the last part also taken in 2019. For those of you who are interested, all of my drawings are done on a Samsung tablet with S Pen, and I use an app called Artflow, which is available for Android. I've started with a new layer to begin with, which I'm doing all of my line art on top of. I've used the rectangular pen for this particular one, and I always have a smoothing feature on, as I don't have very steady hands, and if I draw naturally, you can usually see a wobble in my line art. If I plan on having a finished background, I'll usually start that next after the line art so that my picture has an overall theme and colour. I'll only do a basic sort of thing to begin with, which is what I'm doing now, and then I'll usually move on to doing coloured flats. The background is also drawn on its own layer. I've finished with the background for now, so now I'll move on to flats, but we will return to the background again at the end of the video. I've created a new layer to do my flats on. I've also opened an image of a previous drawing of this character so I can get the colours right. Normally, if I'm making a new character, then all my colours will be on separate layers so I can individually adjust them if I'm not happy with the colours. But in this case, I already know what colour the character is, so all colours will be on the same layer. Normally what I'll do here is I'll paint up to the edge of the border, and then I'll use the fill tool to fill the inner part of the picture in. And I go back over it again to paint over the parts that didn't quite line up before. I'm personally not very fond of this part of the process. I find it quite boring and I'm not very good at keeping in the lines, so I have to keep going back and forth to make sure that colours are right up to the edge. I much prefer doing things like sketches and line art and the later stage of painting. This character is actually one of my older characters, first being drawn in 2004 when Generation 3 ponies were around and I was collecting plenty of plastic models of them. Her original name was Spirit Vine, but I later renamed it to Shine Vine, which I do like a lot better. Her overall design has not really changed much since then. She's been updated to look more like the current generations of My Little Ponies, but otherwise her colour and even her cutie mark have been pretty much identical since I first drew her. Her special talent is meant to be that she can grow plants from basically nothing, which is the idea I had for the background, being that she's just growing grass to be way taller than it's meant to be. I really like the idea of being able to grow your own plants, and I've always loved buying plants and having plants, but I'm personally not very good at keeping them alive. So I'm glad at least Shinevine has the ability to make plants thrive. I've been a My Little Pony fan for as long as I can remember, with one of my favourite episodes actually being the original pilot to the first series. I really loved the design of the ponies in that first episode. Unfortunately, they did change it for the later episodes, but I still thought it was really cute, and most of the ponies had adorable freckles. We're finally done with doing the flat colours and now can move on to the more fun parts. In this part, I'm adding blush to the characters, which is pretty much what I do to every single one of my characters. I know I overdo this sometimes, but I think it's really adorable and I just can't help myself. I'm also adding some backlighting in here, so this is where I start to integrate the background into the rest of the colour of the character. So because there's a lot of green light here, she's actually got quite a lot of reflected light on her underside and around her body to make it tie with the background more. And then I started to colour the eyes. I always choose colours for my characters that I really enjoy colouring. I really love colouring this kind of green, and I really love colouring the kind of purple I've chosen for her as well. I'm also integrating some of the orange from the hair into the eyes, as there would be some colour reflected in the eyes due to the proximity to the hair. Next up, we're going to start adding some shadows. In the shadow layers, I tend to choose quite a dark colour. It doesn't always match the colour of the character, but it's just so I know where the shadows are going to lay, and then I might adjust the colours later. Of course, the shadows in this case are on a separate layer so that they can be easily adjusted, but all the other colours are usually on the same layer, and I usually merge all layers together later so that I can blend the colours better later on in the piece. I'm also using the smudge tool here just to soften the edges of the shadows before moving on to the next stage of shading. As a child, Firefly was my favourite character from the first episode, but as an adult looking back on it now, I actually really enjoy the design of Twilight. Though both characters were redesigned and renamed later on for Generation 4, and are much loved by many other people, I actually really enjoy the original designs from the first episode. In Generation 3 of My Little Ponies, Rainbow Dash was my favourite, but I didn't really watch the TV show then, and I actually really hated the Rainbow Dash character from the show, which is basically just aimed at really young children. I liked Rainbow Dash because she was a blue pony with rainbow coloured hair, and I thought that was pretty cool. At the time they were making these ponies though, there were pretty much no Pegasus and no unicorns, so Rainbow Dash was actually just a normal land pony. She was then combined later on with Firefly to be the Rainbow Dash that most people know in Generation 4. So gave her wings and gave her the attitude of Firefly, but basically the colour scheme of the Generation 3 Rainbow Dash. You can see the shadowed layer flashing as I scroll through all the different types of layer types before settling on what I'd like to have it as and continuing on with the rest of the picture. I made a new layer to do the shadows for the hair, pretty much following the same process as before, just choosing a random colour, making sure it's dark enough and finding where the shadows should lay. Then I adjust the layer so that it matches the rest of the hair. I always add a bit of reflected light into nearly all surfaces. I find that it makes the picture look more 3D and makes the picture look more appealing overall. So you can see I'm doing this just on the darkest parts of the hair, and I do really think it makes the picture pop more. When choosing colour for reflected light, I'll always choose a colour from the background, which is part of the reason if I'm going to do a fully coloured background, I'll actually do it before doing the rest of the character. So in this case, I have used greens for the reflected light, as well as some blues. I'm now in the final stage of my colouring. This is where I actually merge all of my layers, including the line layers, together, and I start blending things together and adding different colours here and there. So you can see I'm actually painting over the lines in some areas and making the character look a bit more 3D. When I actually coloured this character, I was using a pretty fuzzy brush, which I actually regretted later on, so the overall picture looks a little bit blurrier than I'd like to have had it. This process can take as little or as long as you like, and I generally find it to be the most enjoyable part of the drawing. I call this part the painting part, since I feel like I'm just taking big globs of paint and smearing it all over the place, and then picking up and mixing the colours in between and painting over it again. If I'm trying to make a picture in a short amount of time, then I'll usually use a larger brush with big broad strokes, and again just take the colour in between the two colours I've put down and paint over the in between parts again just to make it smoother. The only major problem I have with this process is sometimes I find out pretty late in the piece that my drawing isn't quite right and my lines are in the wrong place or the shape of the face isn't right, and then I have to adjust it, and basically I have to repaint over all the areas that I've just moved. You can actually see this happens in this picture as I readjust the nose and then repaint the parts around the nose to match the rest of the picture. In Generation 4 of My Little Ponies, Princess Luna is my favourite. I have a real soft spot for characters that have redemption arcs, and I really loved both her evil design and the design they settled on for her later in the piece. She has the most amazing and cool glittery hair that I just love to try and draw. I've only drawn her once really, and it wasn't a very good drawing, but definitely my favourite part of it was doing the hair. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm kind of proud of how it turned out, even if the rest of the picture wasn't very good. If you'd like to see any of my old art, it is all on DeviantArt under my name Zitali. I've been on DeviantArt for over 18 years. It's basically just my online gallery and history of from when I started drawing seriously to this point in time. Though I don't get many comments and don't do much on DeviantArt, I will always put my artwork on there because I kind of like having that public record there, so I can always go back and have a look at how have I improved, and other people can see how I've improved over time as well. If you'd like to go check it out, I also will put the link in the description below. At this stage of the picture, I'm pretty much just adding little details and finalising the picture. This can be a big trap for me. A lot of my artwork sits unfinished in folders because I can never decide when enough is enough and when the picture has been detailed or refined enough. One of my biggest problems in early days was spending 20 hours on a picture just detailing and detailing it until I was finally satisfied with the level of detail I had added. In more recent times, I've decided that less is definitely more, and I don't spend half as much time detailing as I did before. I've just had to mentally force myself to just let it go, because otherwise I never end up finishing any artworks. This picture itself was nearly a victim of my inability to finish a picture, and I actually sat unfinished from 2019 until just this week when I finally decided to pick up and finish the last parts of this picture. I had recorded all parts of this, so I thought it was a good time to actually finish it and finish the recording so I'd have more to put up on YouTube. And then I also decided this was going to be my first video with voice recording. So I hope everybody enjoys it. Let me know if you prefer to hear my voice or if you preferred it before when I just put text up on the screen. I always seem to have a bit of trouble deciding where to place eye shines. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll see that sometimes it takes me 5 or 6 goes before I finally decide where the eye shine should be, and sometimes I just delete it altogether and just leave it without the biggest of the highlights and just leave it sort of neutral. I never seem to have trouble deciding where to put the hair shines though, and I do find it very enjoyable. I just like putting that last blob of white on the hair and making it really shine. I'm just adding stray bits of hair here just to make the hair look more like hair and less like a solid piece of plastic. I think this is a really important thing to do for all hair. It really does make it look a bit more realistic. It's at this point when I stopped drawing this picture in 2019. I'm not entirely sure if I'd decided already that the pony was done or not, but when I returned to the picture this week, I decided she was definitely done enough and I should just do the background and finish up the picture so that I actually have a finished piece of art. I do really like how this picture is looking. It just is a little bit blurry because of the brush I was using. I do add some shines to this and blow them in a little bit to make it more integrated with the rest of the picture, and I do like how the overall picture looks. Just don't look at it too closely. Even though returning to this picture this year, I didn't actually work on the pony part itself, I actually still had a lot of fun doing the background. My painting style has evolved a lot in the last couple of years. It's definitely much quicker than it was before, and I really like the brush that I'm using at the moment, which is the bamboo brush. Just sort of gives a more painterly sort of look to it, and I find it a lot easier to use than the brush I'd originally used for the pony itself. I'm just adding the final touches to the background now, adding a little bit of speckles of light around just to make it look kind of magical. I also forgot to do a cutie mark, so I'm just redrawing it here. Lucky I still had the original sketch as part of the image, so I just traced over it and then adjusted the layer so it matched the rest of the pony. As mentioned before, I had a bit more shine to the pony, but I was using a less blurry brush, so I did have to use the smudge tool to blend it into her body so it didn't stand out too much. I then add a few more clods of dirt in front of her hooves so she doesn't look like she's just been pasted onto a background and that she's actually part of the background. I then get a really fuzzy brush and just add a bit of glow around all of the plants so they look a little bit more like they've just appeared out of nowhere and they've not been there all along. I then crop down the picture and the picture is finished. Thank you all if you did make it all to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments section below. And if you liked this video, show me by liking the video or perhaps subscribing to my channel. I do plan to put more videos up here. Let me know if you thought it was better to hear my voice if you don't like me at all and you would prefer to just see text. Thanks again. Bye.